Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Jam. In today's episode, we're going to explore a topic that's on the minds of so many people when they're trying to create a place to call home. They're trying to make a decision whether to rent versus buying a house or an apartment. Now, whether you're someone who's tired of paying rent and thinking about taking the plunge into home ownership, or someone who likes the flexibility of renting, there are pros and cons to both of them. So let's break it down and take a closer look at each side of the coin. Enjoy the show. Okay, let's start with renting, something a lot of people are familiar with, but let's just get straight to it. Renting means living in a space that isn't yours, like you don't own it. You're paying someone else's mortgage, or if they've already paid off the establishment, then they're profiting off your rent. But you don't have the long term responsibilities of ownership. So, what are the positives of renting? Well, number one, flexibility. One of the major perks of renting is the flexibility. Whether you're in a city for a few months or you want the option to pick up and move at any time, obviously once your lease is up, renting makes that possible. There's no commitment to stay for decades or stay for a long time. If your job takes you somewhere else, or you decide that you want to explore another city or a different neighborhood, then renting makes that easier for you. Number two, maintenance free living. So this is a great benefit of renting is you really don't have to deal with the maintenance of it all. If your washing machine breaks, you call them up, they come fix it, dishwasher, so on and so forth. So that's a great thing. If the roof leaks, that's not your problem. You just call somebody, call the landlord, the property management company, and they come and take care of it. Renting frees you from the stress and the cost of unexpected repairs, which can be a huge relief. Number three, renting normally has a lower initial cost. So when you rent, the upfront cost is way lower than when you're buying. So you don't need a huge down payment and there's no closing costs. Most of the time when you're renting, you pay the first month's rent and the security deposit. So that is one of the positives of when you're renting versus buying. Number four, we just got done talking about the cost, so less financial risk. So renting doesn't tie you down to the housing market. So if the housing market was to crash, you wouldn't be affected because you are renting the property. So renters don't bear the risk of a failing market, and as we talk later in the episode, they don't get the benefits if the market is good. So now that we went through the positives of renting, let's look at some of the downsides. Number one, no equity building. This is probably the biggest con of renting. You're not building any equity. Every month you pay rent is gone. You get nothing back from it. When you buy, the money you pay towards your mortgage helps you build equity in a home that can appreciate over time. Number two, the rent increases. So just depending on where you stay, the landlords, they're in the business of making money. So that means they have the ability to increase your rent. Especially in the areas of places are going for more, they'll increase their rent. So, rent hikes can be a lot. They can be unpredictable, which makes it harder to plan for long-term finances. So you could be getting ready to move, or you think you're going to renew your lease for another year, and the landlord comes back and says, "Hey, we're raising your rent $200." So then you got to make a decision on if you want to still stay in that place. So even if you love the place, the rise in rent could force you to move, or you might have to budget differently. And last but not least, number three, one of the downsides is you don't really have control over your space. If you're a renter, you have limited freedom on what you can do to the property. You want to paint the walls, add some new lights or new faucets or whatever, you have to check with the landlord. That could be a no go. So you'd have to talk to them and see what they'll allow you to do. The lack of personalization that comes with renting. So you can't change the space and make it feel how you want to feel. If you don't like it, you would have to check with the landlord in order to make some changes. So those are the downsides, the positives and the negatives of renting. So now let's shift gears and let's go to buying a house. So for many people, owning a home is like, it's the American dream. It's the milestone. You say, oh, I bought my first home. It's a long-term investment. But what makes home ownership so appealing? Number one, like we talked about with renting that you didn't have, where you get to build some equity. When you buy the home, that is your investment. this is probably the most significant advantage of buying is, building equity. When you pay a mortgage, you are investing in something that you own. Over time, the value of your home can appreciate and you can sell it and make money, make you some cash. Your home can become a source of wealth building, something that, renting just can't provide. Number two, stability and control. Homeowners, they offer stability in a way that renting doesn't. So you don't have to worry about the landlord raising the rent or whether your lease is going to be up for renewal. And you don't have to worry about, not being able to customize the spot, that you live in. You can paint the walls, you can remove the cabinets, you can redo the kitchen, you can do all of that, and you don't have to ask for permission. Number three, you got some predictable payments. So you can have a fixed mortgage. Your payments are predictable, unlike rent, where they can rise over time. If you plan ahead, you'll know exactly what your mortgage payments will look like for the next, 15 or 30 years. This can make it easier for you to budget and provide peace when you're trying to figure out how you're going to pay for where you're going to live. So like with the rent, you don't have to worry about it increasing because you know what you have it set for the next 15 to 30 years. Number four, the tax benefit. So when you own a home, you got some financial perks like tax deductions, on your mortgage interest and your property tax. These deductions aren't big for everyone, but they can offer some relief for homeowners, especially in the early years and the early stages of the mortgage. So just like with renting, home ownership, it also has downside. So in the beginning, number one, you got the high upfront cost. That is the biggest drawback of buying a house is the upfront cost. You'll need a down payment, and that can be anywhere from 3% to 20%, and that is of the price of the house. So 3% of the price of the house, whatever that may be. Then you have closing costs, you got inspection fees and things like that. And that can require, a lot of your savings. And, that's a drawback and that is a downside of when it comes to a home ownership. Number two, maintenance and repairs, like we talked about with the apartments. When, something breaks, you can just call and they come fix it and it doesn't cost you anything. Well, when you own the home, when you have your own spot, you got to take control of the maintenance and repairs. You're responsible for the upkeep of the property, the leaking roofs, the plumbing issues, the electrical problems. That's all on you. So, repairs, they cost a lot of money. They're stressful, especially if something major breaks down, like the AC or the water heater or the roof, things like that. Number three, less flexibility. Once you buy a home, you're committed to that home until you sell it. And selling the home takes time. And depending on the market, you may not get back the value that you expect. So, if you're renting, when your lease is up, you could just get up and move wherever you need to go to. But if you're owning the home, if you're owning the home and your job wants to take you to another city or you need a change, selling the home can be pretty difficult and it can be a costly process. Okay, and our final one, number four, you risk depreciation. So while homes can appreciate in value, they can also lose value, especially in a declining market or a down housing market. If the neighborhood experiences a downturn and you bought it at the height of the market, you can end up owing more on the property than it's worth. And that is a risk that renters don't have to deal with. That is something that homeowners have. So this is the final downside of having a home ownership is that you do risk depreciation. So in conclusion, renting versus buying, there are some goods and bads that come with both. But what I want to say to you is do what fits you, have a goal, have a plan. We all want to, own a home, but it may not be in your cards right now. So don't worry about it. And renting ain't all bad. I gave you a bunch of, positive things that come with renting. And part of that is the flexibility and, the being able to move when you need to. And then the pros of owning the home is it's yours. You put some equity in it. You can, design it however you want once you get in there. And that's all good too. So, goods and bads to both. We all got to try to find us a place to live. And I hope you all make the right decision when it's time to choose. If not, you'll be jammed. Thanks for listening.